Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Now, today I'm joined with the amazing Stephanie Bree. Stephanie, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I am doing very well. Thank you for asking. But before we talk about why you're here, Stephanie, I would like for the people that don't know you to get to know you a little bit. Stephanie is a 41-year-old journalist. She wrote the horror novel that she self-published in 2022 called Goldfish on the Mountain. It can be found on her website, which I do have down in the description, as well as her social media links. So, spoiler free, can you tell us a little bit about Goldfish on the Mountain, like what it's about and what gave you the inspiration for that?
Absolutely. Well, it's sort of a trans allegory in that you have a guy who is obsessed with this woman who ends up in a mental hospital, and his brother, he's got a wife who dies in a car accident, and that triggers them both. And one of them becomes a serial killer, and he tries to bring the other brother into the quote family business.
Okay,
At the
nice. And
same time they're trying to rescue that girl from the mental hospital.
right. Well, and like I said, you can find that on the website. Make sure you're checking that out. But that's not the only thing. She's worked professionally as a video editor, cinematographer, TV producer, journalist, digital media editor, and has over 1,000 articles published in a dozen professional publications, ranging from newspapers to websites, TV news and magazines, and at one time was an established DJ, which is totally sick and totally dope. So, how do you find the time to manage doing all these things?
I'm bipolar. So my brain moves faster than the rest of me.
Right. Right. Well, and again, it's one of those things where when you're working all these different things, you're doing all these different things, it definitely keeps you busy. So, we know
Hmm.
that you self-published Goldfish on the Mountain in 2022. Do you have anything coming up in the future that you're working on at the moment?
I am working on my memoirs, which I think will be interesting because I've met a lot of interesting people and done a lot of cool things. But I'm going to give Goldfish some time to breathe before I publish that.
Sure.
And I'm working on a book of short stories that I published either in college or on my blog, but I need to pad that out a little more.
Right. Well, I mean, and the cool thing about that is you guys can stay up to date. Because, like I said, Goldfish on the Mountain just released. But I know, especially someone who is bipolar and their brain keeps constantly working, you're going to constantly have new things coming up the pipeline. So make sure you guys are following Stephanie on social media. Make sure you're checking out the website for ways that you can read Goldfish on the Mountain as well. Now, Stephanie, in order for you to write a horror novel and be involved in the horror genre, horror had to start for you somewhere.
Hmm.
So now, Steph, I would like to go back to the past and talk about what got you started in the horror genre, your first horror movie. And Stephanie, the first horror movie you watched was
Gremlins, and I was the right age for it.
well, and Gremlins is such a fantastic movie. In December, Ashley and I released a review on it. It's one of the movies that we watch every single December. So, do you remember about how old you were when you had seen it for the first time?
I know I had seen it by the time I was in first grade because I remember being in detention, hiding under my desk, and I was scared the gremlins were going to get me. So at
Hmm.
least by the time I was 7. Um, I can't go any further back than that because it gets fuzzy.
Right. Well, do you remember who you were with when you had watched it for the first time?
Oh, my dad, he introduced me to horror.
Good man.
Yep.
Good man. Thank you
Yep.
so much. Um, and Gremlins, we've talked about a lot, is a very good gateway horror movie. It's a way
Hmm.
to get younger kids started in the horror genre without taking them balls to the wall, freaking them out completely when they
Hmm.
watch it for the first time. So, still though, this could be very, very scary for a child. The
Oh,
Mogwai is
yes.
beautiful, and everybody loves Gizmo, but what happens with him and what comes from him if you break the rules is absolutely terrifying. So, Stephanie, do you remember the scene it was that affected you the most from Gremlins?
Oh, yes. It was the Christmas tree. Because it made me scared of Christmas trees. I was like, there's a monster in there. I don't want to go near that damn thing.
And that is one of those moments because the mom is such an underrated badass in this movie. And when she goes on the gremlin attack and she's taking out all these gremlins, you're like, this is so dope. And then, like you said, the one comes out of the Christmas tree and the whole tree falls on top of her. So, you have
Yeah.
that moment of fear for the mom. Like, could we lose her in this moment? And
Yes.
one of the coolest scenes in the entire movie, I have to give that up to you as well. So, we know that the Christmas tree was one of the scariest scenes for you, but do you remember what your favorite scene from the movie was?
Yes. I like where Billy introduces the Mogwai to Corey Feldman's character, and I can't remember his name off the top of my head. But I just thought that was real cute how the little boy went from "this is the coolest thing ever" to "get it away from me."
Because that's when we get it wet for the first time,
Yes.
is in that moment. So yeah, and obviously you see Corey Feldman popping up in another, horror movie at that time. Yes,
Hmm.
can't get enough Corey in the horror movies back then. So um, this is a movie that has stand the test of time. I think it's a movie that still stands up today. A lot of fun to
Hmm.
watch today. But it's one of those movies that it doesn't have very many kills, but it does have enough. So do you
Hmm.
remember which kill it was, whether it was a gremlin or a human kill that stuck with you the most?
Oh yeah, the teacher. I remember that was what made me scared to stay after for detention because I really thought the Gremlins were going to get me.
Right. And in that moment, it's so funny because like you look back and you watch it now, and it's like when Billy walks in and he sees the teacher with just the needle in his ass, you're like, what? How did that happen? Because at first he's just getting his hand bit, and then all of a sudden he has
Hmm.
the needle in his ass. But again, I can see, especially being very young, going to school, when you've already seen this movie, you're freaked out because
Yes.
teachers are intelligent, teachers are smart. That's where they learn. So I absolutely could see how that would be traumatizing for you at such a young age. So, Gremlins had the first two movies, and then they had Secrets of the Mogwai. And there are rumors that we're going to be getting a Gremlins 3 sometime. But would you like to see? Because usually I ask, would you like to see your first horror movie remade or redone, have a sequel to it? If they do finally pull the trigger on a Gremlins 3, is that something you'd be excited to go and see?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think that we're removed enough from the 80s that that movie could use an update. Don't
Yeah.
get me wrong, it's a classic and it stands the test of time, but they're breakdancing in the bar. That's dated. you know?
And it's funny because, that bar scene, I get why they were doing it, for that like the comedic relief of it, having Phoebe Cates still serving them drinks and stuff. But it is such a time filler in the movie that is completely unnecessary. Now
Mhm.
we talk about this movie. It's a very very special movie. I watch it with my kids every single year. Is this a movie that you still watch today?
Oh yeah. I watch it every year in October and in December. And it's one of my top five favorite movies of all time. So it's one of my feel good movies I'll watch when I'm depressed.
And again, it's one of those movies that can really really be a pick me up.
Hmm.
Um, and because like I said, there's a lot of lightness to it. It's not just scary or horrifying. So we talked about your first horror movie, Stephanie, and what that means to you. But real quick, my little buddy Ghostface is here, and he has a question for you. What's your favorite scary movie, Stephanie? What is your favorite horror movie of all time?
Well, it's also my favorite movie of all time, and it is Wes Craven's Nightmare on Elm Street.
Oh,
I
the
can't
OG
get
from
enough of it.
1984.
Yes, I watch it probably 2 or 3 times a month.
Yeah, it's. I've always said if you take out the last 5 minutes of that movie, it's the perfect movie for what they did on the budget they had, the practical effects. It's a perfect movie. I could not agree with you more. So, um, now I know I said it at the beginning, guys, but I would really, really like it if you guys would make sure you're checking out Stephanie's stuff. The links are in the description, the website, everything, so you can become a part of her family as well. But before I let you go, Stephanie, we always go back to one last question. What we're going to
Okay.
do is we're going to bounce back to Gremlins, and what we're going to
Okay.
do here is rank Gremlins on a skull count. Now, we're not ranking it on acting, production, score, direction, nothing like that. We're not being critics. What we're doing here is strictly ranking this movie on how much it affected you on your first viewing. So 0 skulls being not effective, 5 being extremely effective. You can use half and quarter skulls anywhere in the middle. Stephanie,
Okay.
what would your ranking of Gremlins be?
Absolutely a five. They did a good job in the marketing. They marketed the behind the scenes stuff. They made you think those were real creatures. They did not let you
Right.
know they were puppets. And so I became obsessed. I read all the books. I read any comic book that referenced Gremlins. I watched all the Critters movies because I thought, hey, more Gremlins.
See, and that's the crossover I think all of us, 80s and 90s kids wanted. It was a Gremlins and Critters movie together.
Hmm.
Like, who wouldn't want to see Gremlins versus Critters? I think that would be just like the perfect idea for a movie.
My money's on the Gremlins because if it snows or rains, they are unstoppable.
Yep. they are instantly respawning all the time. So, again, it's a movie that when we're talking about Gremlins, it's a movie that, even my kids, who are, 15, 11, and 3 at the time of recording, they love this movie. It's a movie, like I said, we watch every Christmas. We have a blast watching it. We have little inside jokes about it. There's so much fun that comes with the movie. Gizmo's song is a little earwig. It just stays in your head forever and ever. Um, so I'm glad that you were able to start your horror journey with such an amazing, amazing film. So, again, I appreciate you being here, Steph.
Hmm.
Please, though, don't go anywhere. I got a couple more questions for you. Everybody
I also
else,
got
we
my
are.
stripe.
That's
He
amazing.
wanted to join the show.
Yeah, I would never be upset about that. I got my gizmo sitting right up on my dresser right now, actually. So, um, I do want to remind everybody we are at the end of the third act. The credits are about to roll and the curtain's about to drop. But before that happens, one last time, make sure you're following Stephanie on social media and checking out the website so you can find your own way to read Goldfish on the Mountain. But if you haven't already, make sure you like and subscribe and follow Sledgehammer Horror on social media. It really helps the channel more than you know. But until next time, keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.